right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, and the whole night, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black face.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
Hey, and good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, October 16th, 2022. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host downstairs, Mr. Chris Bennett. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Steve. How's it going today, my friend?
Good. Well, as you can see, I am in the dark because I think I figured out the problem here is I'm having some sort of computer lag. I don't think it's because of the bandwidth. I have a feeling it's because of the resources the computer's taking today. I don't know what happened. StreamYard did something a little different. And because of that, I noticed, I had some of my settings, like I have a green screen behind me normally.
Yeah.
And like right now, it's fine. And I may be a little bit on a delay. And I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not doing too bad right now.
Yeah.
But you can see I am in a delay, like raise my hand, and it takes like a second to jump in. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. The reason being is that they're using the virtual machine to project my green screen. My green screen worked normally.
Yeah.
For the last weeks, and today, for whatever reason, let's give that a try. See if that works. And hey, looks like I solved the problem.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So yeah,
it was the new green screen projection.
Well, the pre-show, I was having a problem projecting my video was flickering.
Yeah,
and I couldn't understand why. Now, I don't know if that's going to affect any of the videos today. If not, I'll just stop my camera for the videos. Sometimes it'll do that, but
I think you solved it, Steve. The voice
I think so too.
Up. Yeah.
So anyway, let's welcome our guest today, Mike Luci from the Catskill Appalachin Research Collective. Hello, Mike. Welcome aboard.
What is going on, guys? I'm pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
And you know what's cool is talking to a New Yorker from another part of the state that does research in a completely different part of the state than I normally do. And that is always fun and exciting to talk to. But we got a lot on the plate today. I want to do a couple of quick roundup notes while we're here. We got so much going on, but in case people didn't know, over on the Small Town Monsters side, yours truly will be appearing in the YouTube episode of Bigfoot Beyond the Trail, the Adirondack Beast. It'll be Paul Bartholomew, myself, Mike Ann, and a few others. Emily Fleur. You got me using the my infamous pot knocker. If you remember that pot I used to kind of mimic the tree knocks that just reverberates. And it was kind of funny because I actually realized it was in the back of my truck I said, yeah, what the hell, I'll use it.
Yeah.
And
that's a handy tool that everybody should have in their pack. That way, after you get done banging on a tree with it, you can build a fire and heat up a can of chili or something.
Oh no, you can't cook with this pot.
Oh,
they tend to lose their shape after cracking it on a tree for a while.
Oh,
but it's kind of funny because he's got me hitting there whacking it, and you can hear this thing going bang, bang, bang.
Yeah,
it sounds just like a tree knock, and it echoes throughout everywhere you go.
Of course, it's got the shape, made to amplify the sound. That's great.
And I don't do it necessarily to get knocks back, but I do it to get their attention and perhaps get their curiosity to say, hey, what's going on up there?
Yeah.
So let me just flick this off real quick. There we go.
Yeah. Get that whole curiosity thing, man. They got to know what's happening.
But we got a lot of bases to cover, but I just wanted to cover this, which is kind of funny. I caught this up on a website, which I thought was kind of funny. I call it the war on emojis. This is part one. It's come to our attention lately that we've had a lot of people using the laugh reaction to a number of serious posts without explanation or why they find them funny. Well, when somebody sees a Bigfoot, cloaking and then jumping in front of a portal and then leaving a bunch, and somebody writes the laugh emoji.
Yeah.
So basically, this group has a zero tolerance toward the laugh emoji now.
Oh,
so if you use a laugh emoji on somebody, they're going to ban you from the group.
Oh, no.
Guess you have to switch to the shocked emoji, the one where the face is like, yeah, exactly.
And there was actually even a second post on it, too, which I thought was kind of funny. Mockery, laugh rating, and downgrading. Well, downgrading. I thought that was kind of weird and funny. Let me get over to the comments, too. There we are. And we're going to do our roll call here in a second. And then the other one, well, let's go through Mike, you're going to get a chuckle out of this one, too. And I don't like naming names, but these guys, I mean, this was an actual slide from one of their presentations that happened to come across my my screens. But let's go down the welcoming wagon here. And of course, we got first in tonight, I believe, was Em and Chris with any plans for episode 100. We shall see.
Hey, Chris, good to see you.
I don't know if I'll be recuperated by episode 100. We still have that up in the air. And the reason why people ask is, no, actually, you know what? That's funny. Episode 100, we will have a guest host. Episode 99 is next week. Episode 100, it'll be Joe Snyder and Chris Bennett talking. Because guess what happens 2 days before episode 100? Steve has oral surgery. So these choppers are getting fixed. And
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'll be able to talk. I may be able to talk a little bit. We'll see.
It's still type.
Huh? Yeah, I can still type, but I can still smile. Well, try to smile.
I know after they do a lot of work on the mouth, it feels like you're trying to talk with a mouthful of marshmallows.
Yeah.
Hard to do anything with it.
Well, the funny thing is I know Sherry, my wife, will be very happy that at least she'll get a couple of days of peace and quiet. And oh yeah, let's give him the mashed potatoes and the milkshake and all the stuff I'm not supposed to eat because I'm a diabetic too.
Oh man,
I don't care. I'll just take extra pills, more pills.
My youngest boy Andy had one pulled a couple of weeks ago, and he was living on the Jello and just everything soft. Anything soft. He had to.
You know what? A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know I had a tooth pulled a couple of weeks ago too.
Yeah.
So, man, I just read that's one is not a problem. I just don't know what it's going to feel like having the reminder. But anyway, let's get down the list. We got, of course, Em and Chris, and of course the Mrs. Sherry's in the house.
Sherry.
Uncle Bones, number 2. Angel Nolan is in the house. Jay Fritz. Jay said, "Hang on, how'd I get here? Must be the portal."
That was it.
Tracy Benna, hello,
Tracy.
welcome. That's a name we haven't seen before, I don't think. Well, welcome. Aaron is in the house. Grasshopper in the house.
Grasshopper?
Mr. Lee 3PO, hello.
Lee
Raptor
3PO.
Crazy. Bigfoot New York Todd's in the house. Don Fuller, of course. Going down the list, because
Wow, there's a lot of people in here already today.
it
Thanks,
is.
guys.
Lockbeard's in the house. Hello, Matt from
Lockbeard.
Central Florida, Bigfoot, who replied here. Brian and Chewy go hiking. He makes an appearance every once in a while. Hello, Brian and Chewy. Hello. Jen's in the house. She's here. Lowrider, of course. Always. Prairie Fire. Good to see you back, Prairie Fire. Brian McMahon in the house. Rod Dupree's in the house too.
Rod, welcome.
And Gary Johnson. Hello, Gary's in the house.
Gary.
Sandra Piper, Arthur Watch.
Sandra.
Of course, we said Jay is there. Mick is in the house, of course. I'm sure he's got a healthy heaping portion of meatloaf on his plate.
Meatloaf
ready to go.
Meatloaf connoisseur, Mick.
Meatloaf on hand or meatloaf on the floor, wherever it deserves to be. Yes, Mike, in case you don't know, Mick has a running joke about his mother-in-law's meatloaf. And we always threaten the Sasquatch in the field with the meatloaf, because if they don't come forward, we will kill them with a meatloaf. But anyway, that's the crew I see so far. So I know, as usual, we have people sneaking in, but one thing we do want to get is this post. Somebody had posted this, I forget where, but they had posted this picture of a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation from these two guys listing their accomplishments. And I've spoken to Bear before, and I think I've spoken to both these guys before, and many years ago, and they were okay back then. But some of the stuff oh my God. This says discoveries about Bigfoot that Bear and Combo were first to reveal publicly. I'm like, what? Can be successfully called. What?
Oh, okay.
Quadrupedal travel. What? Climb trees and use sentinel trees. What the hell's a sentinel tree? Different types of Bigfoot and related cryptids, huh?
What?
They count coop. Very organized hunts for prey. Infrasound uses communications and weapon. They were the first to publicly reveal that.
Wow, that's great. I don't believe it, but that's great.
Mimic other animals and humans, including things we say.
Maybe they're first in Alabama, maybe. That could be true. Very possible.
Method to disguise their tracks. Use simple language and some native phrases. Like, holy shit, where's the bathroom? Belly crawl to sneak up on us and other animals. The way of methodically dissecting large animals and removing organs and blood.
Yeah.
They molest and sexually assault livestock.
No, that was in that book. That was not they weren't the first ones to reveal that. No.
I'm interested in learning more about how they figured that one out.
Yeah. Some can count up to about 5.
Well, that's pretty amazing.
What the hell is about 5? Some count to 3, some count to 6.
4 and 3/4.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, they get up 4.
Sounds like the guy who put this together had to keep their fly open in case they had to count to 11. Well, maybe 10 and a half.
21.
Easy, Chris.
Okay.
And detailed habitat preferences. What? So yeah, so I saw that. I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah, I used to listen to Coonbo years ago on Blog Talk Radio, and he would get on. And don't get me wrong, I loved listening to him, but I listen not every week, okay, but he was always a great storyteller. Great storyteller, very great.
I mean, I don't have anything against the guys, but that's kind of. It's kind of, when you start a presentation like that and say, oh, this is some of the things we've done. And you look, they were the first to do this and that. Now we're starting, it's like, if you're going to start with tall tales, what's the rest of your presentation going to be like?
Yeah.
Well,
they're probably maybe the first in their area. So, but they're doing a flyer to kind of pat themselves on the back and get people to come to an event, I assume. I don't know.
And we got a few more that snuck in too. I want to say hello to in case I missed anybody, I apologize. But I see Mary Roller popped in. Hello, Mary, and we'll be seeing. I'm sure I'll be seeing Mary in less than a week in Chautauqua. And Stephen Barcella from the Cryptozoology and Paranormal Museum popped in. Hello.
That's the Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot conference that what's his name? Pete Weimer, I think his name is.
Yep, Peter Weimer, yep. Okay. Yep, Peter Weimer, yep. Yep, and that's coming up on the 22nd, and the headliner for that is Dr. Jeff Meldrum, of course, me, and talk about drawing a blank, but just a great crew there. But it's going to be good to see Jeff again. And Little Kilroy says they also discovered America.
Well, it's funny enough that this sparked an interesting conversation going on in chat from Lockbeard over there about the livestock situation. But now that really, what was the name of that book, Steve? That was
The Creature by Jan Clement.
Yeah.
And The Creature by Jan Clement.
Yeah.
And, I did that big expose on that book. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Creature by Jan Clement, Mike. But that book was like one of the first books about habituation.
Oh, wow.
That came out in 74 and 75. Well, it was 74, but it came out in 76. And I did a complete takedown of it.
And
I actually found out who wrote it. And in fact, the last time when we were doing the Pennsylvania Bigfoot camping adventure, that was actually right in the backyard of where that allegedly had taken place. And over the years, there were a lot of people that were suspect of maybe it was, and I know some people thought Dr. Gary Johnson, who's a Pennsylvania scientist, they thought maybe he would, but no, not Gary, Roger Johnson. But anyway, it wasn't
anyway.
Him.
Yeah, quite.
It turned out to be the publisher of the book who actually was the.
That was the definitely first earliest documented source of the love affair with livestock between livestock and Bigfoot or Bigfoot and livestock.
Yep.
Earliest documented case that I'm aware
of. He put my comment up and took it right back and said he didn't say he was excited to see me on the 22nd. I mooned.
I just want to go on record and say too, in my opinion, Western New York is probably one of the top 3 underrated areas in North America, I think, for Bigfoot, for Bigfoot sightings and activity. Because like when people think of New York, most of the time people just think of New York City, maybe Long Island. A lot of people don't realize just how vast the rest of the state is. And when you go west of Binghamton to the southern tier, just between there and Buffalo, it's really all just farmland, woods, hills, mountains. Not a lot of people there, so there's definitely a lot of room for them to roam around out there. And there's definitely a couple of hot spots out there too. I know like the Finger Lakes has its fair history of sightings. Allegheny State Park that goes right into the Allegheny National Forest. I know like the Niagara region. Niagara region has a couple of good stories. So I really like that.
Well, I think it's a stigma people get into because, automatically when you think of New York City pops in your head. So if somebody says, hey, I'm from New York, you automatically just pow. Oh, they're from, downtown,
Mm-hmm.
But
that's the Monster Quest back in 2008 opened with that too. It opened with New York City. A lot of people think that when they think of New York, they think of the Big Apple.
Yeah.
And quite definitively. I mean, I live in, my county. I just moved to Washington County, which is the same county that Whitehall is in.
Yeah.
And we've talked to Whitehall exclusively here a lot. And it's predominantly dairy farms and alpaca farms, if you believe that, because alpacas have nice wool. And Jay is giving Joe crap because Jay said, talking you're prehistoric. Joe lives there. LOL.
Okay, so Western New York Bigfoot had his encounter in Allegheny County. I think that's actually where I go hunting for rifle season.
Nice.
I'd be kind of curious. So, like near what town he had his encounter in?
Joe Bob.
Oh man.
But
Raptor Crazy out of New York. I'd love to see the proof that they're talking about all the time. I've only seen one print and that looks sketchy at best. Okay, so nope. I'm in New York.
Okay, I got to see how, because the town I hunt in, it's called Friendship, I think. I got to look at the map and see how close that is.
And Raptor, this is a question for Raptor out in the chat. If you just want to write that in, you've seen one print and that looks sketchy at best. Which one would that be? Because excuse me, here the problem with New York, and Mike can attest to this, is the substrate's pretty shitty for tracks. It's not the greatest in most places. Bigfoot New York Todd says his sighting was south of Wellsville.
Okay, Wellsville, yeah.
So, and there's been sightings. In fact, New York State, in that particular Western New York, Sackett's Harbor was where the first real newspaper account of a wild man occurred, 1818.
Yeah.
Described as having longish reddish hair. But anyway, this let's get over to Mike and let's talk about how you started in this and some of your exploits and some of your experiences.
Yeah, sure. So really what started it for me was the Finding Bigfoot show. I was just cruising around. This is back when everything was on Netflix. I was just cruising around when I was in like my early to mid 20s. I just started binging the show, and when I started seeing episodes about just based in like different different states outside like the Pacific Northwest, I was kind of skeptical about it. But I pursued it with an open mind, and it was really just these little subtle details the show kept on bringing up. About their investigation, just about their investigations with witness testimonies and whatnot, that really just started to make me think like, all right, you know what, maybe this whole thing, maybe there's a lot more to this. Maybe, these things being a lot more widespread, not just isolated to the Pacific Northwest, is a lot more conceivable than, we let on to be. So I started doing my own research. I started doing my own research. I was finding like articles about, like we were saying before, like, I quote hairy man or wild man just in different parts of the country, the country throughout the years. I attended my first private organized expedition in 2016 down in South Jersey. And then, after I did that, it started.
So you have experience being an international squatcher. You were in Jersey.
Yeah. And since then, I think I've gone squatching in about, I think I'm up to 8 or 9 states now.
Very cool.
I want to say, so, I'm still getting around.
Now, what was your experience in what state did you find yourself having the most type of experiences, not necessarily encounters, but experiences.
Oh, definitely PA. With the CARC, we've done the majority of our field work just in different parts of Pennsylvania. We probably had our most prolific experience out in Allegheny National Forest back in October 2020. And excuse me, just to clarify, like the closest things, like I've only heard things, we've gotten really good audio. I've yet to, see anything, or I've yet to like see anything or have anything like thrown at me or have any feelings of like being stalked or anything like that.
Right.
But, I've definitely heard some weird, weird sounds, possible howls, things like that, possible knocking sounds that, when they happen, you kind of break them down. You're able to like, rule out other possible things like coyotes, things like that. So, yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna do this real quick for the benefit of Raptor Crazy. I just got to pull up because I don't. It'll be a lot quicker just to shuffle the website over and show him this real quick. This is actually New York right here, and this is the cast you see here. There's the one I got in 2006 in New York, and I heard this guy and I smelled this guy walking around us. That was the first and only time I really smelled one. And it was so prolific that it was like, bang, there it was. And a year and a half later, this gentleman, Frank, had gotten a print about a mile away from there. And it was a year and a half later. It turns out it was the same individual having a different toe splay, but the same heel width length and such. And as you can see them lined up, of course, he has a little more overcast than I do on that one in this particular picture here. So, but it was in softer substrate, and it made his toe splay a little bit wider, and the toes were more definitive than in my cast. And as you can see, we ended up getting the whole entire track line over here up there, but that is available on Squatchdetective.com. So you want to check that out, Raptor. And that was 2006. That was actually looked at. The original one from 2006 was looked at by Dr. John Bindernagel at the time. And when we did the Monster Quest episode, he very firmly said, "Oh yeah, this is what a typical Sasquatch print looks like. Very flat-footed. It had a little bump in it where the mid-tarsus was, and a very wide print, not necessarily long, but very wide. And that's very the type of prints we get in New York is shorter, but they're very wide. So I'm sorry. I just wanted to do that for Raptor because I know he's kind of not necessarily convinced that Bigfoot exists in New York, but for the law enforcement officers that I've spoken with and obviously some of the experiences you've had, Mike, and we're going to talk about some more of that. But yeah, and that I did get to meet Dr. John then, and it was just a wonderful time. And let him rest in peace. God rest his soul. And I'm glad to see that they're actually doing a tribute conference to him this year or next year at some point. They're doing a tribute to him, so that's really cool. And obviously you have no. You weren't not at all. We didn't consider it was an attack at all, Raptor. We just, you have a question, and you know what? Everybody has a right here to be skeptical, and that's something I always say. I would expect no less from my audience to be skeptical and ask questions and ask tough questions, because that is, I would expect no less of you guys. And I respect you dearly for that. Like I say, dissension or disagreement is often welcomed. Getting personal, it's not. And that's what we need to divide. I have no problem. That's why in the show we've had skeptics on. We've had Ben Radford on. Another person I want to get on the show too is Kenny Biddle. But he's kind of in the middle of a move right now, so it'll be a bit for him. So
I love those two casts though. It's very cool, that they were taking like what, about a mile away, a mile apart.
Yeah, about a mile away. Yeah.
Yeah, but at different times, and the toast play was different, but it's virtually the same individual.
Right. Well, that's from an evidentiary standpoint. Being an investigator professionally, that is evidence. Is when you okay. Now we know it's not somebody just stamping them away. So let's get into some of the stuff you sent to us, because I know the audience would be dying to see this. But you sent a couple of audios, and actually what I did was I just made a video out of them, putting the waveforms on them so people can look at the waveforms while they're listening to the thing. And you go with which one you think you want to do first, and I'll just cue them up when if you want to describe what those sightings.
Sure. Yeah, so I guess I'll just go in order. If we could play the one that we got in Allegheny National Forest,
which is the Rock or Sugar Run?
Sugar Run.
Sugar Run, okay. Yeah, and
so,
you wanna do a little intro to that one?
Yeah, sure.
So you want to explain?
Yep, yeah, so it was about a little over 2 years ago. This was actually one of our group's first organized expeditions. We'd gone out to the Allegheny National Forest area. Now, ironically, we stayed on the New York side. That expedition was our primary focus of that expedition was supposed to be Allegheny State Park, which for people who are familiar with the area, Allegheny State Park, it's in the southern tier, western New York, and that greenway, it pretty much goes down and it attaches to Allegheny National Forest, which is in Pennsylvania. Well, when we were there, I pretty much mapped out the whole itinerary for that weekend. But our figuring was, we're so close to Allegheny National Forest, we might as well pay our due diligence and just, do something there one night. So it turned out to be our first night that we had the whole crew there, that we wound up just, going south of the border into PA. And, we got in there pretty late. We found this fire road. It was kind of near where the North Country Trail cuts through. And just so for those who don't know, the North Country Trail, it's kind of like the Appalachian Trail of the northern part of the U.S. It starts in the Adirondacks and it cuts all the way across west. I think it stops ends in North Dakota or something like that. But anyway, we found this fire road kind of near it. It took us really, really deep in about 5-6 miles. So we were several miles away from the nearest house, nearest paved two-way road. So our group was split up in two different locations. Me and another guy, we were dropped off at a trailhead. We hiked in a little bit and we kind of just posted up there. Brendan and Sean, they were actually the two who recorded this audio. I wasn't physically this was kind of near right outside the town of Bradford, PA. See if that helps. In McKean County. And so what they did was I'm sure you're
on the screen there's Bradford right there. So
yeah, and it's a little that green area right there to the left of the Glendorn icon was kind of where it happened, that little green patch right there below that was that Route 346, south of Route 346. Yeah, where is.
Oh, there it is, Bradford. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So they I'm sure you're all familiar with the technique of call blasting, sound blasting, whatever you want to call it. They did that. It was around 3 a.m. and it was kind of rain. It was kind of raining a little bit, but they set everything up. They ripped a couple of sounds, and no less than a minute later, we got these weird responses that we were able to catch on audio.
Okay, so let's play the Sugar Run Howl. And there's, I believe you have also some waveforms with coyotes in them too, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, let's play that video now, and we'll let it play out, and we'll talk about it, and we'll run it one more time after we're done talking about it. So, and if people have questions at that point, just fire away. So here we go. Sounds like the weather was wonderful.
Oh yeah. Well, it was weird. So where Brendan and Sean were when they caught it, it was kind of like on and off raining, on and off raining like that. Where we were, we had nothing. We just had like a couple of like, we just had a couple of like small drops every now and then. Tracy, to answer your question, it was about, I want to say,
which is how close was it? Yep.
Yeah, I want to say about quarter-ish mile away from their position. Again, just to reiterate, like I physically wasn't there at that exact location when it happened. Brendan and Sean had that going on. I was like the craziest thing we heard that night was just like a screech owl. So we kind of had a bit of a boring. We kind of had like a bit of a boring night on our end, but that's what they had. So the weird thing about that was, like I personally kind of have like a little bit of trouble hearing it, but
now a couple of folks in chat already saying they believe it may be canine.
So we've gotten that before, and we definitely gotten that response before. If you look at the spectrograph signatures on that though, just like the way like whatever this was making those sounds, it looks just between like its frequency, what the signature looks like, it looks totally different from like a coyote or anything like that. That's actually so that there actually is from is for the other PA one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, right there. But we sent those. So we actually sent those to David Ellis of the Olympic Project.
Gotcha.
And and he said that he put them in like some type of category called singing or something like that. He mentioned something about the heart. Like it was a really it was like a really informative but like a technical response that it gave us. We actually had like a whole video on this audio on our YouTube channel that it'll definitely be able to explain everything in much better detail than I'll be able to. But
even Joe says that there. Now I've noticed that too. First time I experienced that, and I've heard about it, was in Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky. I heard this incredible howl and like a scream almost. It was like and all of a sudden, from a slightly different direction, because it was a lot closer, was these group of coyotes that responded. Now that's something that people got to understand is that canines will respond with their own howls if something hits their frequency. That's why you have some dogs which will naturally howl when, say, especially a federal Q siren goes by. That's in case anyone wonders what a federal Q is. That is the siren in the fire truck that goes, and it's air driven, and it's actually run by a pedal, not an electronic switch like an ambulance siren or a police car siren. So the federal Q sometimes will hit that right frequency, and it will cause dogs to start going and start to howl.
Yeah.
Because so a lot of times I think that there is a Bigfoot scream, and as it hits that right frequency, the coyotes start, or even wolves, will start to yip and yap because it's hitting their frequency.
And the thing about that too is you hear most canine howls, especially like coyote howls. They're very high pitched, very almost like yippy.
Yep.
These were just very prolonged. They kind of have like that, like just the what's the word I'm looking for? The phonetics of it. I just think there were just certain details of the phonetics of his howls that I don't know if your conventional coyote or anything like that would be able to make them. But one thing I've definitely shared that audio to my fair share of people. I have showed it to actually a couple of dogman researchers, and obviously they're like, well, I don't think it's a Bigfoot here. I think you might have like a dogman. I'm just like,
no.
Yeah.
Of course they're gonna say it's Dogman, and you don't seem like to be a big believer in Dogman, right?
It's don't get me wrong. I would love for it to be real, just like I would love to for something like Bigfoot to be real. But I just think compared, especially compared to Bigfoot, I just think like the audience, the evidence out there, like genuine physical evidence out there for, something like a dog man, it's just lacking. Like, yeah, you have a lot of anecdotal accounts, a lot of interesting eyewitness accounts. And, like, I think whether it's Bigfoot, dog man, other cryptids, people are definitely seeing something out there, experiencing something. I just don't think that there just isn't anything as concrete for like the dogman phenomenon as we have with, the Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, I tend to have a problem with it. The kinesiology of it, I guess, is that it doesn't, or the mechanics of it. It doesn't, the legs do not seem to be like built for a bipedal type of walking for the people that have seen it run off on two legs.
Well, there's two types apparently. There's one type that's supposedly more like better built, like like thicker, like tree trunk like legs, basically like a Bigfoot body with a dog's head. And then there's this other one called like type 5 or something like that, like type something, where it's got like this. It's got like the skinny, like backward hinged.
I always get worried when people type number those things. It's like, oh well, type 1 dog man looks like type 2, it's like.
Well, I think dog man and bear man are the same creature. A bear walking on two legs.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's always been my thing too. Like I know there's actually incidentally on a Monster Quest, they were talking about one. They were talking about one particular encounter. This he was like a road worker or something like that. He was picking up roadkill in Michigan, and he said he saw one in his back window, I guess pulling the roadkill out or something like that. I mean, who's to say that wasn't just like a bear on two legs? It probably maybe saw quickly. The lighting wasn't good. Let his imagination, get the best of him. Because just with the ears, the snout and everything like that. It looks eerily, like it looks for, that definitely looks kind of familiar, similar, I guess.
Mike, best I remember that account, he said that he saw something grab a deer carcass out of the back of his truck and lift it out because he was driving like, what do they call it, the dead wagon or whatever, animal carcass removal. And, to me, I always thought,
he ain't dead yet.
to me, I always thought,
shut up, you will be soon.
It could have very well been a bear, stand up on its hind legs and then reach and grab something and pull it out.
Nothing for sale. I have nothing for sale. That was also part.
Classic.
Oh man.
But yeah, I'm loving these responses though that the chat are giving to the audio. A lot of people think it's either canine or coyote or something like that. So, it's I like the definitely like the healthy dose of skepticism. Truth is, we don't know what it is, but we're pretty sure it's not. We're pretty sure it's not a coyote or something like that. Or anything like that. I mean, we could be wrong. Let's be real. Like at least me personally, I'm wrong more than I am right. In this field, but they're definitely interesting to see. They're definitely interesting to say the least. And the fact that we got that endorsement from David Ellis from an organization as prestigious as the Olympic Project, I think definitely gives it some legs to.
Yeah, and you got to understand too is that you guys heard that with your own ears, and with all the rainfall going on, it doesn't. Recordings are so damned hard because you got to deal with wind, you got to deal with rainfall, you got to deal with other stuff that's falling from the trees. Especially like in New York, we have those trees that I forget the actual name of them, but they're knuckled. The branches are knuckled, and during the fall, especially, the knuckles will break off, and that protects the tree. And you'll hear. And it's these little knuckles breaking off because it's a protective, people wonder why trees drop their leaves. It's a defense mechanism. They are preparing themselves for, winter. And that's why they drop their leaves. And because if their leaves maintained or stayed there, guess what would happen? They would collapse or, have nice tree bends that everybody thinks is a Bigfoot.
No,
Well, yeah.
and I'm a very, very outspoken skeptic about tree bends, manipulation, structures. I personally don't think they have anything to do with Bigfoot. I think most of them are just naturally made or man-made, and there's a lot of people whenever I bring that up in some instances, it is just amazing just how defensive and just outright nasty people get when you challenge a narrative like that. It's just, I mean, the way I see it is things like, when we go out there in the woods or on these, on these expeditions or whatever, the goal is to find some sort of evidence of Bigfoot or a creature like that. And, sometimes I just think our mindsets get dictated more by like what we want, by what we want to see or what we want something to be than what we actually think it is. So we see these, tree bends and manipulations and things like that. I just think it, I really just think for the most part, it's just kind of like wishful thinking, just, kind of like a sense of like self-satisfaction, self-validation, or something like that. Like people are using to see like what they want to see. Like, does that make any sense? I know I kind of ramble.
I think that's a good point, Mike. A lot of people maybe read too much into what they're seeing, and
sometimes hearing, or seeing. I mean, that is across the board. That some people have very active, and this is what I like about Mike. Mike is a very grounded guy. And, there are people out there, and 99.9% of our audience is very grounded as well, which I love. That's their attraction to this show, is because we're grounded. And that, there is a percentage, and usually they're the more vocal ones, that are not grounded and that think everything, every structure, every tree is Bigfoot, and they have nothing at all to, necessarily back that up. So,
and like I've been out in the woods with people. Well, and just, keep this in mind. We'll be like on the trail, and you'll just see like a broken tree, bent at a 90-degree angle or whatever on the trail, and they'll walk up to it just absolutely enamored, like infatuated with it. Give it the whole up and down examination, and they'll be like, what could have done this? They'll say, like, what could have done this besides a Bigfoot? Right. And I'm standing there thinking, like, I could probably name about 99 things that probably did that before a Bigfoot. And, like, I'm relative to, like, most people in the field. I'm a pretty young guy. I'm only 32 years old. These are, like, like grown ass men, 20, 30 years older than me, who are actually doing, like, serious about thinking that,
Well, I think there's a thing that you get into. If people start overanalyzing something, they start reading into it more than there is there to read.
Or they just so badly want to be on the trail of something.
Need it to be there.
I mean, the only time I've ever looked at tree breaks and attributed them to Sasquatch was looking at, basically tracking something through the woods after a sighting report. That was the only thing I could attribute, because there's some breaks. Oh, there's a 5'9" break. Oh, there's a 6 foot break. Right. There's a 5 foot. Mm-hmm. And you are actually following that in the line. But they'll find one broken tree branch in the middle of nowhere and say, oh, it's Bigfoot.
Sasquatch came through here.
Yeah. Bigfoot. I think we better put the gifting bowl back out there.
Yeah,
right, Chris?
The new iPhone's out.
And then we'll get a new iPhone this time, Chris.
Yeah.
No, Mike, that's a reference to a video I put out. It's on the channel, by the way. It is the new and improved gifting bowl. And if you haven't seen that video, Mike, give it a watch.
That's one of the Stop the Woonacy feature films.
How many porcupines did that get on the?
Oh, the gifting bowl got 5 out of 5 porcupines.
Then I gotta watch. Watch it.
The actual porcupine got 1.5 porcupines out of porcupine. That one's on there too. The porcupine rating system's on the channel.
That's amazing.
We have some fun with the stuff. So. You know, so I don't know why that sometimes the people don't know how to take me. You know, am I being serious? Am I being if any speaking of which, beyond the trail, there is a very, very interesting scene in there where Mike, Alex, Eli, and myself, Sherry was back up at the vehicles where we start tracking something on thermal. And we're pretty sure it probably was it was probably a bear. And we were chasing the bear out of the woods, but we had found some scat, which did not to me look like bear scat, and because it was very heavily, there was a very strong ammonia scent to it. So I don't definitely not primate like, more probably I'm thinking porcupine or some sort of ungulate. But not a deer because it wouldn't have been an ungulate if it wasn't a deer. But it didn't look like it wasn't deer droppings, and it definitely was, but it was very, very strong ammonia smell. It could have even been bobcat. Now I'm thinking about it. But as I was collecting it, I say something very deadpan. I said, well, we're going to do 3 things with this scat sample. And 1, 2, and 3, and I said 3 just as serious as I said the first 2. And of course, it was completely in jest, and it's pretty funny. So I'm not going to give it away though. You got to watch it.
Kill me with those cliffhangers.
Yeah, but that's just me. Anybody knows me. I can be a wise ass in some of the most dangerous situations in the world.
So you're kind of like the comedy relief guy.
I can be.
Okay.
I can be.
Well, you gotta have fun, no matter what you do. If you're not having fun, something's wrong.
I mean, I've arrested a person who said, "Yeah, I saw you doing the same thing last week." He goes, "Oh no, I have a twin brother," and of course, automatically my first reaction was, "Oh, is your twin brother a thief too?" And everybody just looked at me, "Oh." You didn't know what to say. But
runs in
okay,
the family.
So
we better put out a disclaimer about the tree structures. I mean, we're not saying that Bigfoot, Sasquatch can't make something out in the middle of the woods. It's very likely they do, but as far as all the trail markers and stuff like that,
But people got to understand, unless you saw a Sasquatch doing it,
right,
and it's just random, you can't assume.
Due diligence.
Right. If I have a sighting report where somebody had seen one there and I realized, and you're tracking it using, tracking skills, and then you see these breaks, then the assumption is warranted.
Yeah.
There are no assumptions without warranties to them. That is an investigative, principle. Basically is, okay, you have a break-in at a house, let's say, for an example. Or let's say, for example, you find a broken window on a house. And this is kind of the logic that I want people to follow. So obviously you're driving by the house, you see a broken window. Mike, what would be your first thought?
Either a break-in or, maybe like a tree or, maybe like a tree or rock or something like that hit it during a storm. Yeah, one of those two most likely.
I'm just going to jump straight to Steve broke my window.
Besides that, which would probably be using Occam's razor, that would probably be the most likely.
Steve broke my window. He flew down here from New York, broke my window, and then flew back.
But you see, the jump would be like a broken branch and Bigfoot, a broken window, and it's a burglary. No, you would, even a broken door. You go by, you see a lock knocked out of a door. Is that a burglary? You don't have enough information to say that that's a burglary. Now, obviously, if you go in the house and you see stuff missing and drawers dumped on the floor, then the assumption is warranted that broken lock was caused by a burglar. But you can't make that assumption just looking at the lock. That could have been done by a locksmith and they're in the middle of repairing the lock. So or maybe the owner of the house, is doing it. Whatever.
Well, if my lock is laying on the ground when I come home and my chocolate oatmeal cookies are gone, I'm going to be mad.
Right. Yep. Which, not to get off on a side tangent, but I love, Chris, I love getting on. Has anybody seen the coming attractions for this upcoming movie called Violent Night?
No, I haven't.
Actually, John Leguizamo is the bad guy in it. It's kind of funny. And, yeah, it's a movie where Santa Claus goes postal on a bunch of bad guys.
Oh, no. No, not
I
Santa
looked at I
Claus.
started laughing.
No.
You're on my naughty list. And so I gotta watch that movie. It was gonna be a fun one.
I hope
But anyway,
this is going to be a comedy.
it's kind of like a comedy action film. It's kind of there's some but anyway, that's that's my point on that. So let's set up the next one, which is the rock one.
Mm-hmm.
So
so we got this one back in June. We were on a state game land, and it was kind of near Catawissa, PA, and we basically took this fire road about 2 miles or so in, and it kind of like ascended. So we're kind of like top of like the hill area. So we actually had a good amount of people with us that expedition. I think we had about 10 or 11 people. So we broke up into 3 groups. Because along this road, they were just like random clearings. Because it's a state game land. I guess people like park there to set up shop, like hunting and things like that. So each of these clearings were spread out about maybe a few hundred yards, a mile or so. So we so from the first group to the last group, me and Brendan, we were the furthest group out. We were probably spread about maybe a mile or so in total. So I put out about 3 or 4 different recorders. There was a gate. Yeah, so there was a gate that just went deeper into the woods. I put one there. And then there was another area that went back towards the clearing where, our next closest team was. I put that one. That's a recording that caught this, that caught this howl. It was the clearest one. I mean, all three recorders caught the howl, but this one here was the clearest one. I just put that one on a rock, which is why it's named Rock. And then we had a third recorder that we just, put on top of the car. So what's funny about this one is this one happened at around like 11:30 or so at night. And we were only there at our spot for about not even 45, 50 minutes. Like we were there for less than an hour when we heard this. And when I first heard it, I actually got kind of pissed because I thought that it was the other team. I thought it was the other team already call blasted.
Oh yeah.
And I look up Brendan and I'm like, why the fuck are they call blasting? We're not even here an hour. And Brendan, Brendan's he's more skeptical. He's more skeptical about the stuff than I am. He looked at me. He's like, they're that way. That came from that way.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah. It's always that Zen realization where,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's give it a listen, folks. Oops, wrong button. I'm so focused on
yeah, and I got the spectrograph signature there too of this one.
And there you have it. So very faint.
so-
I know it's kind of hard to hear, folks. But, but
the spectrograph signature is pretty distinct on that one though.
Yep.
And what I liked about that one, it's a very long sustained howl. Very long sustained howl, and then the coyote, you hear the coyotes chime in afterwards, and just one of the biggest distinguishments between the coyotes and that possible vocal that we got was, number one, just how deep, how much deeper and longer and sustained that howl was compared to like the high pitched yips that the coyotes wound up making.
Right.
So this was in if you're actually able to pull it, if you're able to pull the map, I could show you like the exact area that where we were, where it came from.
Okay,
it was so it's like near Catawissa, Pennsylvania.
I'm gonna try spelling it.
It's I think it's CAT.
Got it.
Son of a gun. And this was actually on State Game Lands 58.
There's Catawissa, and I'm assuming that's going to be over this way. Yep, there it is.
Yeah. So if you go go back a little more closer towards Catawissa. So that kind of like this area. That area here. So like a little like around where your mouse. So like those two clearings right above where your mouse is. That's kind of like the area that we were. So if you zoom out, you could see. If you zoom out a little more. So you could see there you have like that ridge line from that hill, and then that ridge line from that hill. That's where those howls came from that direction. And as you could see, there's a power line that cuts through there, and then there's like a little swampy area right there. So that was the direction that came from. We haven't been able to like check out that actual the actual ridge line of those hills just to see like what's
now,
up there yet. But
now let me ask you something. It was not raining that day, correct?
Correct.
See, folks, a couple of people made comments that rain. That wasn't rain. That's wind. That is your common breeze that recorders capture a lot. That.
Yeah,
and that's wind. The first one you can definitely hear. You hear pop, 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 pop. That's when it rains. You hear raindrops. Yeah. When you hear that little like that type of noise in the background, that constant, that is actually wind. So there's always an amount of wind, and your speaker mics are opened up all the way. So if I was to open up this microphone here all the way, you would get a in the background as well, even with it's just airflow. So just so you know, so there was no rain that particular day. So.
The weather was actually quite nice that weekend. It was like early June, kind of like when spring starts transitioning into summer.
And Don says it's disturbing noise to me, whatever it is. Well, unfortunately, that's when you're trying to listen over miles, especially if you're using parabolics. If you use a parabolic mic, wow, that's even magnified even more so much. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, especially when it's a windy night. And
the crazy thing about that, about that vocal is all three teams. Keep in mind, we were spread about a mile and a half apart. All three teams heard that vocal.
Nice. I'm like, everybody's point. We that happened to us in the Dax during our Monster Quest episode too. We heard a howl prior to somebody putting out a howl. And, we confirmed, did you do that twice or once? I only did that once. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and that does happen. That's why, communications is crucial out in the field for those who are out in the field.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And, that's one of the things that happened. Chuck Larson. He was in like one of the other teams. He actually came a few minutes after that. We heard that vocal. He hopped on the radio and he was like, did anyone else hear that howl? So after that kind of gave me the validation, like, okay, that definitely wasn't any one of us who did that.
Yep. And just so, what kind of recorder was that?
It was I don't have it with me. I think it was like a Sony one. I don't know the exact model type or anything like that.
Yeah, the Sony ones have that big. If you crank up an H2 zoom, or even an H1 zoom, you will get that kind of background in them. I recognize that. Of course, next year will be my 25th year doing this. So yeah, I've listened to days of audio and video and pictures and stuff, and yeah.
And that's one of the things too that people are kind of
it's Catawassa.
Catasquatcha. That looks like a combination of Catawissa and Susquehanna. Like combining the two words. But yeah, like one thing I think a lot of people don't realize when they think of just like, this type of research and everything like that, they think, oh, it's just, people running through the woods, making sounds. What they don't see is, how like 90% of the time you're just sitting there in silence waiting for stuff to happen, or they don't see, the 20 something odd hours of audio that you have to sift through. Yep. Sift through and stuff like that. So definitely puts things in perspective.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important. If you guys are out there researching and doing stuff, especially with recorders, and I've done paranormal investigations as well, and it's so important to timestamp your video or audio, and both video too, when you start audibly. Like when I start a recording, I always state the date and the time the recording is started. That way. I always keep a little notebook, and okay, I know I got to listen at the 8:40 mark. And if I started my video at 7 p.m., I know that I got to look or listen to the audio at that hour and 40-minute mark. So that's why it makes it really important to stamp your audio and know when you started it. And that's why, a notebook is an essential thing. Okay, started recorder 1 at this time, started recorder 2 at this time. That way you can coordinate if you have them facing different directions to, possibly even obtain the same recording from from multiple recorders. Very important.
Yeah. And don't save your only copy on an external hard drive.
Uh-oh, Leon snuck in.
Hey, Leon, welcome.
Oh, Leon. Yeah, so it's really important to do that stuff. But that's why it's so important doing this. And of course, have I always done that too? No. Have I forgotten to do that? Oh yeah. But one thing I don't do is play back on the device. I always tend to wait till the end, put it on a computer and then analyze it that way. Makes it a lot easier. Use your programs. Audacity is a great program. I use several different audio programs, and I use several different video programs to do all my stuff because they do different. Some of them do things better than others. So, just words of advice from an old fart like me. So any close encounters at all, Mike?
No, not yet. The besides those vocals, the only things I've really heard were just like, a couple of possible knocks. I haven't gotten struck by anything, haven't gotten anything thrown at me. I definitely haven't seen anything yet. I haven't had the privilege yet. But I'm definitely I'm always keeping my eyes out. This is definitely one of those things where you just have to keep putting in your time, and it seems like most cases whenever people actually have their sightings, it's when they least expect it, or they're out there not even looking for the thing. But I guess one particular story I like to hear, one particular story I like to tell is Western New York Bigfoot. Yeah, definitely. Maybe we'll see out in the woods someday. I mean, I went to college in Buffalo, so I go back and forth to Western New York all the time. Just going out there to hunt or visit friends. So, but anyway, before I'd gone on another private expedition in southern New York, kind of like the Dutchess County area near the Appalachian Trail. And a couple of weeks, like about 2 weeks beforehand, I just decided to check the area out. So I got up early. I got up early one morning. I just went on like a solo hike, and I kind of like formed like a bit of. I kind of like mapped out like a loop I was gonna do. Do a chunk of it on the Appalachian Trail, and then take a bunch of side trails. A bunch of like other mark trails back until I got back to my car. So it was around 8 a.m. and I got into like a little like clearing, like a backcountry site right off the trail. So I sat down in front of the fire pit that was. I sat down in front of the fire pit that was there. I went. I was going to get myself a bottle of water for my bag. So as I was like as I was bending down and I was going to like reach into my bag, I just heard clear as day coming from my left, just like a distinct wood hitting on wood. And it was one of those sounds, like, sometimes you hear a sound, it's so piercing, like you kind of feel it, like go through you almost.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. And I remember I just like froze, and I was just like, whoa, like, what was that? I've never heard that before. And I was there under the premise. I was there mainly because I was, we doing a Bigfoot expedition there, a couple of weeks in the future. But this was, I'm pretty familiar with what like a falling, like something falling sounds like a falling tree branch or something like that, or like a snapping branch or something. They all have those distinct qualities. This was none of that. This was just solid, like, wood hitting wood.
Right.
When I looked, when I checked out the area on Google Earth, it was kind of like I was facing this way. This here was kind of where the site was, and it took, it came from this direction. That noise. This direction was all just like, there's like a ridge line, and then it was all just woods, brush, just went out into like nothingness. So I was probably about a quarter mile away from the nearest road. So that's something like one of like the weirder possible experiences I've had that I always like to talk about.
Well, with the loud crack, was it like a two pieces of wood banging together, or did it sound like a big stick maybe broke apart? What do you think?
In my opinion, it just distinctly sounded like a hard wooden surface striking another hard wooden surface. Like when something cracks, kind of has like that.
Yeah.
Kind of, like that kind of sound to it. This didn't have that, and anyone who goes out, in the field with me, they'll know, like, whenever I hear any noises like that or anything like that,
right,
I'll usually try to be the first to formally debunk it or downplay it or dismiss it. So that was really like one of my more interesting experiences I've had.
Well, sometimes that's just the way it happens. You're not expecting anything, then out of the blue, bang. And I know my nephew had reported hearing a loud crack like that one night while coon hunting, and they had an experience with their dogs. All their dogs came. They normally hunt with dogs, and after that loud crack, all the dogs came back to them.
and for those in chat, like Rap and Don, no offense is taken, so don't think we're thinking that this is an attack. If you're skeptical or you have some dissenting opinions, like I said, dissenting opinions are always welcome.
Yeah.
That's what makes a good show.
We don't do yes men. No,
we don't do yes men, and we don't sit there and take things personally. So, if the criticism is not a personal attack, which we've seen happen mostly from the hoaxers, which reminds me the Bigfoot tooth guy, We Do It Outdoors, just got snagged, and I'll be covering more, maybe that next week. I'll talk with Darren, but apparently they came out with a video with an audio in there, and they basically stole the audio off somebody else. and Lockbeard says, I hereby dissent. What exactly? I don't know.
And you know what's funny too? You always see like your fair share. You know, you always see like certain Bigfoot pictures or videos. They kind of, you know, like the hoax ones, they kind of get recycled. I guess once every couple of months, once every couple of months, a couple of years. Yeah, they'll start making their rounds. Like I know one really popular one's those I think they were like these supposed like big photos taken in Virginia or something like that, like the black figure along like the there's like a incline and it's along like a lake shore or something like that. And it's always like it's always the same story. Like it's always the same story, but a different location.
Oh
like,
yep.
The Finding Bigfoot team's been deployed.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah,
and like the Bigfoot peeper made another appearance. Of course, that was the guy convicted for child molestation that was posting this hoax. He made another appearance in another group about 3 weeks ago, and I made sure he got bounced. And then he realized because I went right on his post and said, listen, I basically posted the video. And of course, I'm sure he saw the videos and he immediately blocked me. But I have another Facebook account too that you can't block me and get away with it. So I'll still keep an eye on. But Nikki says I got to watch the end of her show. Sounds like Nikki had a humdinger of a show tonight over at Hairy Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks, and she's doing a bang up job doing the hoax busting now, which kudos to her.
We'll check it out, Nikki.
It's really tough for me to juggle
Hairy
everything.
Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks.
But yeah, like one thing I've kind of noticed with these like hoaxes that keep getting recycled, it's happening with audio now too. There's this, I don't know if you've seen this one video. It's like, I think it's like someone like a boat or something like that. And they're filming like the side of like a river, and you hear these weird sound, like really, really weird sound, like grunting. And then you hear this one scream. It goes like, ooh, or something like that. That original audio came from a video that was posted in like Georgia or something like that back in 2013. So I guess from like a hoaxer's perspective, it's probably easier to, if you're trying to BS someone, it's probably easier to do it with a piece of audio than, like a picture or a video or something like that, just because, it's probably easier just to give it like a new background or new image or something like that to go with it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Plus, they don't really have to work. They don't really have to work too hard if they're just going to scour the internet and nab some audio from 10 years ago and maybe place it with a new video and make everybody think, oh, this is new. No, sorry. You're going to fool some of the people, but you're not going to fool Steve Kulls.
Sure.
Well, I'll say Raptor. Sorry, everyone, still no proof from New York. I'll say this to Raptor. Come out in the field and see what we see and experience what we experience in New York. You'll change your mind.
Well, there's no proof of Bigfoot anywhere.
Yeah, that's very true. There's no proof.
It's not on the record as a registered species. So
that's what I told skeptics.
Nobody's saying you should believe there's Bigfoot out there either. You should go experience it for yourself and only believe it when you see it with your own two eyes.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, one really compelling video that came out of New York was back in '96. The thing swinging in the tree. I think it's called the baby.
97. Yep.
97. I'm sorry.
Yep. I was the first one to investigate that bad boy.
Oh, okay. So
I got the video from a gentleman. His name was Doug Pridgeon. Mm-hmm. And that was taken at Lembo Lake in Modena, New York. It was a privately owned piece of property. Behind that property were tons of apple orchards and wild strawberries and wild raspberries and berries of all sorts.
Yummy.
And it was just boom. And it wasn't discovered until 2002. And that's when originally an investigator from the BFRO, by I forget his name. Paul Kucera originally investigated it a little bit, talked to him, but never really got the video. And I talked to Paul. I said, well, did you get the video? Well, do you mind if I take over? And he's like, oh, go right ahead. So I contacted Doug, and he sent, about 3 weeks later, I got the video because he had to transfer it to another videotape. And I plopped that in there. Of course, this is the day of VCR still. And plopped that in, and holy geez. I looked at it on a big screen. I looked at it at 100-inch screen. And like, well, what is that? And what's the big one there? And from there, I took that, and I was the first one to really digitalize it. I took it to a shop at the time because they didn't have them readily available. Like, you couldn't do that on home computers at that point. So I took it to a shop. They converted it to DVDs, and I made 3 copies of the DVD. Of course, one I sent to the BFRO, because they came in through the BFRO. The other one I sent to a research partner of mine, and another one I kept. And then I eventually took that and put that on the computer, and reformatted it. So now it was a downloadable thing. And if people have seen my version online, and when I show my version is cut right off the DVD that was made off the videotape. So it's the clearest.
Yeah.
And you really see the difference of it. And with the advancement of some of the digital technologies and editors and stuff like that, now I'm able to do with a couple of years ago, I did stuff that I was unable to do with it, obviously, 15 years prior. So, and this is, this even predates Squatchdetective.com, which was 2006. So this even predated that, and I was out there investigating.
That's so funny too. The New York baby video. I disagreed with Steve on that for a long time, and then finally, I don't know whether he asked me a question about it. Have you ever looked at it frame by frame or something like that? It was something like that. It got me. I was like, well, no, but I'm going to now. And then after I looked at it frame by frame, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. Something's going on here. This is
because that whole thing, I think there was something like 700 or 800 frames, I think, because I actually had a program that broke it down frame by frame.
Yeah.
And out of all 700 frames, there was only probably about 30 that really stood out, that you can see a lot of this detail that you can't see in on the video.
The problems I had with it were addressed like that. I was like, oh, wow. So, there's a difference between being skeptical or being a skeptic.
Yep.
And I think I was guilty of being a skeptic at first, but then I graduated to being truly skeptical. And when I analyzed it further, okay, questions answered.
Yep.
Pretty good stuff.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny because, Paul said, well, I talked to Doug and he seemed a little kind of goofy. I go, hey, Paul, he's from New Jersey. Now, I can say that because I was born there. A lot of people don't realize I'm a New Yorker, but I was actually born native to New Jersey. So, and I lived there
old age
of 4 or 3.5, actually.
Those are mostly just New Yorkers give New Jersey a bad rap. I mean, New York City New Yorkers give Jersey a bad rap. Man,
you ever see how they drive?
It's a beautiful state, It's a beautiful state.
I've been all through there. New Jersey, their new state motto should be where turn signals are optional. And Mike knows.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, dude! You get on the turnpike on 995, man. It's run for your life, But you could say the same thing about Chicago. There's bad drivers everywhere.
No offense to our Massachusetts friends, but
we love you guys.
The friggin' the craziest driving I've ever seen has been in Boston. Woo. It's even crazier in New York City.
But the thing about Jersey though too, like what we were saying about New York, when most people think Jersey, they think of the Jersey Shore, or they think of like that little northeast section of New Jersey that's right by the city. So New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the country, but what most people don't realize is like 80-90% of the population lives in that little northeast corner, and just along the shorelines. The rest of New Jersey is just farmland, mountains, forests, and
it's beautiful.
The Pine
Barrens.
The
Pine Barrens, yeah, in stereo.
And yeah, like the Pine Barrens is super, super vast. Like I've been down there. I've been down there before. I've gone on expeditions down there before. I've just recreationally hiked down there a couple of times, and just aside from like the terrain being so unique, it's like there's some areas there you wouldn't think they're in Jersey, but they're really, really remote. Like there's spots on there. You just look on Google Map, they're miles away from like, the nearest road or house or anything like that.
Yeah.
Even Northwest Jersey, the section where the Appalachian Trail goes through, it's there's some areas
right near
there
the Poconos. And all that.
Yeah.
And
beautiful country.
Yeah. And, like Northwest Jersey and the Pine Barrens, those are actually kind of like the two Bigfoot hotspots. I know in the Pine Barrens is kind of, known for the, legend of the Jersey Devil, but
yeah,
there's Bigfoot reports that come out of that area regularly.
Right.
And then up in Northwest Jersey, kind of like Sussex County, that area, I think it's called Big Red Eye up there. They kind of had like a spree of reports during the 70s and even today in like, High Point State Park, Stokes, just, like the area following the Appalachian Trail, like you still get reports that, that come out of that area pretty occasionally.
Yeah. There's a lot of sighting reports from the Pine Barrens,
the funny thing about the Big Red Eye is usually when I go out squatching, I get the Big Brown Eye. Always.
Terrible. That was bad.
Sorry, had to be said.
That's why before I go camping or hiking or anything like that, I always load up on like a Modium or something like that.
No. I always end up running into some, Anyway, let's go to our last topic of the night, of course. Now you guys recently just did a trip out to an area, and you guys are you guys working on a documentary? Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So yeah, we've actually kind of been like snooping around in your neck of the woods, kind of, Steve. I actually just got back from Warren County, so we're we're investigating this really famous missing persons case. A gentleman named Thomas Messick. He was an 82-year-old hunter. He went missing on November 15th, 1982. That's him. That's him right there. So the guy has a really interesting backstory. He was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, fought in Korea. The injury to his eye when he was in his early 20s, he some kind of incident with like a firework or something like that. He lost sight in his eye there, unfortunately. But the guy was a real badass. He was an avid hunterman, fisherman, camper. He taught. He was an instructor for like survival courses, instructor for hunting courses. So he really
safety, yeah.
Yeah, so he really knew his stuff out. Knew his stuff out there. So on November 15th, the story goes it was him and about 5 or 6 other people. So there were 2 types of like subgroups in this group. There were older people in the group, and then there were younger people in the group. Now, they normally so he was originally from Troy, New York, Mr. Messick, and their group usually did
and a brief note, that's where I grew up.
There we go. They did they usually did their hunting for like over 50 something odd years at a hunting camp in Hague, New York, I think is how you say it, Hague. But they decided to try this new spot in called Lily Pond in Warren County for like the first time ever. So they got there during the day, and they kind of I forget the name of the specific strategy, but basically they had the older group the older group of hunters line up, kind of form like a straight line parallel to the road, to Lily Pond Road. And then the younger group, they followed this. So like, the older hunters are here. The younger group followed kind of like the snowmobile trail. And they, there it is. And they were going to go over this mountain and then, head back in the direction of the older hunters. So the figuring was they move that direction. They would try and like, flush out any deer towards the older hunters for them to hunt. So after they did their thing, they met up at around, they were all supposed to meet up around like in the afternoon around 2:00. Tom Messick never showed up. He was last seen. So he was the furthest one away, because they were spread out about maybe 100, 200 yards apart or so. He was like the last one in that little like linear line that they formed. So he was last seen supposedly headed over to his post. So
they labeled Tom as the watcher, and the older guys, the older gentlemen, if I'm not mistaken, they were only around 30 or 40 yards off trail, and they were going to sit there, and the younger guys went up around the ridge line, the heavy lifting part. They were going to come down, and if there was any game, they would drive it towards the older guys, who were pretty much just sitting pretty close to the trail or the road there. I don't remember if it was off Lily Pond Road or Lily Pond Trail. I can't remember.
It was Lily Pond Road.
So the older guys are 30, 40 yards, in the woods, and Tom was, Tom disappeared that close to the trail or that close to the road.
Yeah, and he literally it seems like he vanished without a trace. So it was, I believe, the largest organized search and rescue effort in New York State history that took place trying to find him. I think there were over 300 volunteers that were involved. There were over like a dozen different organizations. Right. The FBI got involved, and that was really one detail that Dave Paulides really touched on, that he was kind of sketched out about when he wrote about it in his Missing 411 book, because usually when the FBI really doesn't, unless it's like a missing child, the FBI really usually doesn't get involved in missing person cases unless it took place, I think, on federal land, or the missing person in question is a federal employee. In reality,
or if they're requested, but they weren't in this case.
Yeah, in actuality, the FBI does monitor missing persons cases, and they kind of came on site. They're only there for about, I think, 48 hours or so, mainly just to see if there were any resources or anything like that they could offer. So after they realized, all right, these people are pretty much all set, they're in good shape. They went there, did their thing for about 48 hours, and then they kind of backed out and just let the DEC, search and rescue, state troopers, and all them handle it. But they searched for this guy for about 2-3 a really, really long time. They literally had volunteers line up arm lengths apart, take one step forward, look around. It was a really, really thorough, really thorough investigation, search and rescue effort.
And that's true. He had he had a rifle. He had a walkie-talkie. He had a backpack. He had snacks.
Yeah.
He had food. And nothing was ever found.
So, and then, here's the interesting thing too. So he did have, he had a bunch of stitches in his hand, I think from the firework incident. He did have some medical issues though. He had a history of heart problems. He'd recently gotten over shingles, actually. He had a bad case of shingles apparently. And because of that, he almost didn't even go on this trip because of that, because he wasn't sure if he was 100% or not. So obviously when someone just, vanishes into thin air like that, there's theories are abound of what could happen to him. You have people, maybe he was abducted, maybe he, like whether like he was actually kidnapped by someone or, by even like alien abductions. Maybe it was an animal attack. Maybe it was a Bigfoot. Maybe he was shot by, like shot by accident or something, or something like that. We think that we might have, we think maybe there are a couple of possibilities that we like to say we may, we might be able to have ruled out. Firstly, if it was an animal attack, someone mentioned it in here, like an animal attack, whether it was, like a regular, like a bear, puma, or a squatch, even like a squatch or something like that. You would see signs of it. You would see signs of a struggle. You probably see blood. Prints or drag marks or anything like that. Not to mention this guy was armed.
Right.
Yeah. And he knew how to use his rifle too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that too kind of makes me rule out the abduction narrative. Well, for two reasons. Number one, this guy was armed, and then number two, I've been up and down, we've been up and down this road, Lily Pond Road, multiple times. And, there's a couple of things worth mentioning. First off, sound actually travels pretty far.
Yes.
In this, up and down this road. So, people think like, oh, maybe someone like another car or a quad or something like that hit him and got scared, or maybe someone shot him. Like that guy's good. Yeah.
And mind you, folks, I've been to Lily Pond. Mm-hmm. I was actually at Lily Pond, I think, in 2016 in the fall, which was just about a year after he went missing. Because he went missing in 2015.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I was there, and that was an active discussion we had at that time was, and this is before, pre-missing 411 stuff. And what I always find interesting about this is you're absolutely right. If this had been an animal attack, if this had been hypothermia, had this been even something of foul play, there was no drag marks anywhere. There's no blood found. Not saying, I mean, if he was kidnapped, somebody could have got the thumb on him. But like you said, that area is so quiet. Mm-hmm. If anybody approached from, a mile away, you'd start hearing them show up.
Yeah.
And at night, it's super creepy at night up there. I'm sure you know that now.
Oh yeah.
The description of the search, really.
Oh yeah,
that's
right.
Away.
That's right.
Where they were,
Chuck was up at Lily Pond with us both times, and that way we were also there in 2012. Now I remember that. Yes, that's where Chuck made his campfire chili. Oh, that was so
yeah.
But
that was the one that was a debate. Everybody. Some people were calling it stew, wasn't it, Chuck? I think what it was.
Whatever the chef calls it is what you call it. That's what I say.
And Chuck is a professional chef.
Yes.
So then why are you questioning him?
I didn't question him. He said
no, not you. Just like like the other people that were there.
If he said it was shit on a shingle, I'd agree with him.
Yeah.
But it was good. In fact, I use that recipe now myself to make chili.
Yeah.
That's 5-minute chili.
The search effort that they made, though, they tied off strings in quadrants, and then went like arm length from each other, walking through the entire quadrant. And once they got that area checked out, they would do another one, and it's like they combed every inch, and not a sign, not a piece of clothing, no gun found laying anywhere. It's just incredible.
And Don makes a point now. I don't know if he's being funny. I think he had another life going on, was picked up by his other life. At his age, I think he would have, if he had another life going on, he probably would have checked out a lot sooner.
82. Yeah, 82.
And that's the whole thing. Natural causes. Why didn't they, even if his body was scavenged, like they made a lot of good points, right. Is that, okay, say he had a heart attack and he went down. There would be evidence of there's clothing. Yeah. The animals don't eat the clothing. There would be shoes. There would be all the remnants, the rifle, all that stuff.
They're not going to eat the rifle.
Something would have been found. In fact, they made a very good point. New York And I know my son's a ranger in New York, state forest ranger.
Yes,
They have a very intricate and very proactive approach to finding missing people in New York. And it very rarely you go missing in a state park, you're probably in the safest place to go missing in a New York State park, because the state has so many resources to find people in New York State. It's their field of expertise between, your state forest rangers, and then your environmental conservation police. And then you have the volunteer fire companies that are local to the area, that know the terrain, and there were several different volunteer fire companies that were involved in the search as well. Yeah, I mean, just an amazing story.
I was shocked at the detail of the search, how thorough, that they had made.
Now, in looking at that Missing 411 documentary, which I coincidentally, when Mike and I were talking about this the other day on the phone, I think my wife kind of looked around for it and found it and started playing. So after I got off the phone with you, I spent the next hour and a half watching that. Thanks, Mike. But Pilates will talk about, like the guy in Colorado, especially, that was a very interesting case. Yeah. But to me, it wasn't the same degree of weirdness. Pilates talks about this guy in Colorado that, they found his boots here, and then they found this here, and then they found his backpack leaned. We talked about the Dyatlov Pass incident, and in the Dyatlov Pass incident in Russia back in the 50s. And to me, that the guy in Colorado sounds like a classic case of hypothermia. You get hypothermic. Okay. Yeah. You start feeling like you're warm. You actually feel the opposite of you're freezing, but you start feeling warm. So he takes his shoes off, and then he takes his coat off. And then, you have this whole, he walks 6 miles. Well, although it's improbable, obviously that's what happened. Right. So I don't really think that that's really to the degree of high weirdness. And I know he tries to tie in like weather events tied into this stuff. And no, for whatever the case. And he also kind of looped in the missing man from Schuylerville into this. Well, shortly while that search was going on, a man went missing in Schuylerville, New York. Yeah. Now I'm going to give you a couple of caveats to that. Schuylerville, New York, as people, like I announced a few weeks ago, I moved to Greenwich, New York, Washington County. But, the closest civilization I have, which is 3 miles away, is Schuylerville, New York. Cross the river. I just hop the bridge and I'm in Schuylerville. So that's my community. I hang out in a lot now. I go to my stores there and stuff like that. The guy was a politician for many years. So could it have been a foul play? Sure. And he just up and disappeared too. Didn't find any trace of him. Mm-hmm. He was home and boof, he disappeared. Yeah,
like the 9th or 10th day after Mr. Messick disappeared. Yep.
Now, Schuylerville, coincidentally, is very close to Saratoga Lake, which has been a UFO hotspot for many years. A lot of people didn't know that. But years ago, before I got into this whole Bigfoot thing, back in the mid-90s, I had a friend who was a MUFON investigator. And he'd been working with a guy and actually the guy was an artist who lived on Saratoga Lake, who had hours and hours of this mysterious lights flying over Saratoga Lake. And these weren't Chinese lanterns or anything like that, because guess what, folks? What's not legal in New York State? Chinese lanterns.
Oh, you're kidding. Really?
Right. Because we have too much woods.
Oh, yeah.
Those lanterns go down in a forest and you have a conflagration. So, you can't buy them anywhere in New York. And that, some of the people were trying to explain that as a UFO sighting over Watervliet. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I posted that video. And I'm like, Chinese lanterns, they're not legal in New York. So just very, very interesting with the, that gentleman missing. And then you have this Lily Pond thing a week earlier where this guy goes missing. I mean, is there a connection? I don't think there is, other than aside from them both going missing under drastically different circumstances, mind you.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see a connection between the two.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, the second guy went missing from his home. So
in the daytime. Yeah. In the daytime. Yep. Yep.
And
so
like the weird thing. I'm sorry.
And I agree, Raptor. I think some of the stories are embellished in the formal. I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, one thing Politis did with the Tom Messick story was he one thing he did with the Tom Messick story, he mentions how the weather got inclement right after he disappeared. The way he worded it is the weather got inclement right after the search and rescue started. Messick went missing on the 15th. The actual state troopers and everyone like that, they didn't come until the 19th. So that's kind of when things really got official, official went underway. But it was 4 days after they came. That's what he was referring to when he says the weather started to get inclement. The way he words it in the book, though, in his book, though, he makes it seem as if the weather got inclement on the 16th or 17th, literally immediately after he vanished.
Now Lockbeard said, could he have fallen in the creek that would have carried him away? Not really. Up there is not a lot of swift moving creeks at all. There's some streams, but nothing like a rapid. As you can see, the topo there. There's not really, and they did search the pond, and they did search the waterways.
They did describe one area as being swampy.
Right. Well, Lily Pond, yeah, there's a lot of swampy area around Lily Pond. But he was well away from the pond. His last position, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, he was headed towards the Brant Lake camp, I believe. Was he not?
So if you zoom in a little bit, I could probably pinpoint it. So above the little red marker.
No. Wasn't he headed?
Yeah, it's
I think he was up in here, wasn't he?
No, a little lower. Yeah. Keep going. So you see that little bump right? So you see that little bump right there to the left of your mouse? Keep going a little to the right. So
right.
Go back to Lily Pond Road. So right there where you're.
Okay, right there. Yeah, that's right. I knew it was somewhere along.
Yeah, so it's kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
So none of these are raging, and I know it's kind of tough for people to. None of these are like raging rivers. I mean, even in the areas of the Adirondacks I go to, most of your rivers are very are basically streams. The only areas that I would think would be really rapids is like the Ausable River, which is not even in Warren County. That's up in Essex County, up north. Perhaps even in Clinton County, which is even further north. So that would not necessarily, that's the only place where you really have some rapid waters. Even there's nothing that would, even like the Poultney River. Yeah, you can fall in it, but a lot of places it's only, waist deep or even ankle deep in some places.
Yeah, and he had a radio with him. So whatever happened, if it was natural causes or an accident, something had to happen really quick, so fast that he couldn't even respond on the radio. So,
it's just
little Kilroy
pop one.
Quicksand or sinkhole.
Sinkhole.
That's kind of what I think happened either, because the area does have a lot of caves, a lot of crevices. I think that what most likely happened is, for whatever reason, he wandered away from his post. And he must have just fell into maybe a crevice or a sinkhole or something like that. When he fell in, it just got covered up with dirt and foliage and everything. And that was that.
Lockbeard. Well, maybe that leaves us with petasaurs.
How come I didn't think about that before? Wow,
Damn
that just sheds a whole new light on this case now.
Perhaps it was a jackalope attack.
Had to be a dinosaur.
Dog man.
The only dinosaur around is this guy sitting in this chair over here.
Don't say
that. I mean, I wouldn't rule out foul play, but if it was an accident, then he's still there somewhere. They've just yet to find him.
No quicksand or sinkhole. Yeah, I don't really, being up there, and we stomped a lot of ground up there a couple of times. We were up there, and Chuck reminded me we were up there in 2012, and I don't recall seeing anything that would have been like quicksand like. And you would think that an outdoor guy, would, know how to, know
something's
where to
gonna
walk.
float too.
Yeah. And eventually, something would be given up.
Right.
Which a shoe, a hat, or a rifle, or the backpack, something. I just don't know. It's really weird. And he was nowhere near a large body of water. I mean, Lily Pond may look big. It's really not that big. It's not like something you'd put a boat on and go boating. You might put a rowboat on there, but it's, from what I remember, it was very swampy.
Yeah.
In David Pilates' documentary, The Missing 411, The Hunted, he really did a good job describing about the grid search that they did and tying off areas with string. But they didn't cover if they searched the swampy areas in the same way.
They did.
I'm wondering.
They did. That was actually some of the fire department focus, because they have the water rescue craft, and they went over there, and they I don't know if they actually put divers in the pond. They
could have divers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think
no, but
did.
The swampy areas they were talking about. That's what I meant. I wonder.
Well, the pond is the swampy area.
You think that's it?
Yeah, I mean, you see this radius right here. This is all kind of swampy and marshy.
Okay, yeah.
Surrounding it. But he was up in here, and even if he was, he was supposed to be headed that way. He was his trail. I believe he was supposed to be trekking this way, and this is where they lost him, was right in here.
Mm-hmm.
So
incredible.
So Brendan, our director, he's really gone like full on, really taking this whole thing and ran, and he got this book and tracked down the author of this basically just like book that breaks down just like the habits and tendencies and statistics of people who go missing, search and rescue, and everything like that. And it pretty much said, like, most of the time you'll find the guy, you'll find the missing person, I think, within like 300 yards of their last known position, like 90% of the time.
Right.
So I definitely think that's, like, if he is in this area, because there are actually a good amount of people who don't even think he was there that day.
Well, that would be interesting. That would be interesting.
So that goes down like a whole other rabbit hole on like what could have happened, and some people think it gives credence to the foul play or accident,
well, here's my thoughts. The obviously the amount of time, including doing searches like a year later. I mean, although they did the search, I think for a few weeks, they did repeat searches like a year later, and a year after that. They've done sporadic searches for the body, so that's telling me that they would not commit dollars and resources to that search, and unless they ruled out that fact that they actually believe, law enforcement believes that he was actually there that day, as stated by the people he was accompanied by. So that kind of rules that out, and it's not listed as like a foul play. It's if you look at even the state police websites, it's listed as a guy went missing in the woods, and that nothing there.
Well, there's a lot more.
Chuck made a great point too, is if you come in from the Grassville roadside and go around Lily to the west, you run into a chain link fence.
That's really interesting. I never knew that before. I gotta just look into that.
Now Chuck, I know Chuck's stopping ground was Hague, Bolton Landing, and Lily Pond area. So he, that was, he lived up that way in Warren County. So that's, he knows that area very well, like the back of his hand.
An 82-year-old's not going to climb a chain link fence.
Yeah.
Well, you never know, but It sounds unlikely.
I wouldn't climb one.
Well, why would you go? You may walk along the fence, because if you walk along the fence, eventually you're going to lead to something.
Right.
But you may not. You won't. Necessarily hop it and go perpendicular to it. I know, Mike. We had a picture to go through, but we're just about out of time. Believe it or not.
Wow. So, and I remember when I spoke to you today, you were like, it's gonna blow your mind how quickly these 2 hours are gonna fly by. And here I am, stunned that it's already been that.
I told you. A lot of great conversations tonight, and I appreciate you coming on, brother.
I'm thrilled. I was thrilled you guys had me on. Thanks again.
And I look forward to you coming up this area, and or you have something going on down that area. If I'm available, I'll come down.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely keep in touch. Organize something.
A lot of fun, especially spring. Yeah,
we appreciate having you on, Mike.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. Thank you.
It's been a great show.
So, Chris, do your thing, because we're going to take this show home.
I want to thank our guest, Mike, for being on here. Really enjoyed the conversation. Love the sound clips. I want to thank our listeners in chat and on the podcast. Hey, we don't forget you guys. But if you're listening on the podcast, be sure to check out the YouTube channel so you can see some of the video that we got on here. But we really appreciate everybody over in the chat. Thank you so much.
And truthfully, we haven't uploaded any new shows to the Audible channels yet.
Okay.
So we're going to do that. I'm going to be doing that this week. I got 3 episodes worth of downloads to put up on the site. So, so even another month down the road that we forget. Yeah. Download. I'm sorry, my finger keeps hitting the mute button over there. But
we got the greatest listeners in the world, and we know it, and we appreciate you guys so much.
And folks, again, Mike, thank you so much. And folks, on behalf of us here at Squatch-D TV, we want to wish everybody happy, safe, and healthy week. We'll have another show coming at you next Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Now, I may be dragging a little bit because I'm sure we're going to do a little Sunday excursion out in Chautauqua, and then I'll be taking the road home. So between now and then, I'm hoping to get a guest for the show, and once that happens, the show is pretty easy once that happens. But we'll try to get a guest for the show for next week. We're always working last minute on things, because you never know with breaking news in this field. And, we'll have hopefully some pictures and some video from Chautauqua. I don't know if I'll be able to get that all unpacked by the time, because like I say, it's a 5-hour drive. So I'll be leaving, if I'm out in the woods till 2:00, I'm not getting home till 7. So we'll see what happens. We may take an excursion. We may not. We may take only like an hour drive. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, we'll be back here next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Squatch-D TV, SquatchDTV.com, YouTube.com/Steve Kulls, or YouTube.com/Squatch-D TV, which is soon coming with the new YouTube handles. So again, everybody have a great week, safe week. Enjoy it. God bless. And of course, keep on squatching.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless. And keep on squatching.